There was a moment recently that caught a lot of attention, and it came from a player that not many people expected to be part of that kind of conversation. When Jackson Hayes knocked down another three-point shot, it was one of those plays that makes people pause for a second and think about possibilities. Not because anyone suddenly expects him to become one of the best shooters in basketball, but because even the idea of him adding that element to his game could completely change the way the Los Angeles Lakers operate on offense. When a player with his athleticism and speed begins to stretch the floor, it forces defenses to make decisions they did not have to make before, and that is where teams can become very dangerous. Jackson Hayes has always been known for his energy, his ability to run the floor, and especially his role as a lob threat around the rim. His vertical spacing alone already creates pressure on opposing defenses because defenders have to stay alert at all times when the pick and roll starts. The moment a defender hesitates or looks away, Hayes can explode toward the rim and finish above everyone. That alone has value, and it is one of the reasons why he fits well in lineups that like to play fast and attack early in the shot clock. But when you start imagining that same player stepping out and hitting an outside shot occasionally, the entire dynamic of the offense changes. The biggest impact would be in pick and roll situations. Right now, most defenses expect Hayes to roll to the basket almost every time. That allows the opposing center to stay close to the paint, ready to cut off the lob or protect the rim. But if Hayes becomes a player who can roll to the basket or pop out to the perimeter, then defenders are forced into a much more difficult decision. If the big man stays in the paint, Hayes could step out for an open shot. If the big man steps out to contest the shot, the lane opens for cuts and drives, or even for Hayes himself to attack the rim with his speed. The kind of versatility is what separates good teams from very difficult teams to defend. Modern basketball values players who can do more than one thing on the offensive end, especially big men who can handle the ball, pass, shoot, and still protect the rim on defense. Hayes is still developing, and that is important to remember. He is not a finished product, and players often make big improvements when they start to understand their role and build confidence over time. The physical tools have always been there for him. The question has always been about consistency, decision-making, and expanding his offensive game little by little. Over the course of this season, there have already been visible improvements in several areas of his game. Defensively, he looks more disciplined and more aware of positioning. Offensively, he seems more comfortable in the system, moving without the ball and understanding where he needs to be. Those improvements may not always show up in highlight plays, but they are extremely important for a player who wants to become a reliable piece in a rotation. Coaches value players they can trust to be in the right place and make the right decision, and that trust is built through consistency and effort. If Hayes can add a reliable mid-range shot and occasionally knock down a three-point shot, he becomes a completely different type of player. Not necessarily a star, but a very valuable modern center who can adapt to different lineups and different game situations. Imagine a lineup where every player on the floor can shoot, move the ball, and attack closeouts. That forces defenses to spread out and creates driving lanes, which leads to easier scoring opportunities. Even if Hayes only takes a small number of outside shots per game, the threat alone changes defensive spacing. Another important factor is how this kind of development would help the team's playmakers. When a center can both roll and pop, the guard running the pick and roll suddenly has more options. That makes the offense less predictable and more difficult to scout. Defenses rely heavily on predicting tendencies, and when a team removes those predictable patterns, it becomes much harder to stop them over the course of a game. One possession the center rolls, the next possession he pops out for a shot, and the next time he fakes the screen and cuts straight to the rim. Variety in offense often leads to defensive mistakes. Of course, none of this means he should suddenly start taking a large number of outside shots. His ability to finish near the rim, run in transition, and catch lobs is still extremely valuable and should remain a major part of his game. The goal is not to change his identity as a player, but to expand it. The best players are the ones who keep adding new skills without losing what already makes them effective. Development in basketball is often about adding layers to a player's game rather than completely changing who they are on the court. What makes this situation interesting is that the potential is clearly there. He has shown in the past that he is capable of making outside shots in small numbers, and sometimes that is all a team needs. Even a modest percentage from distance can be enough to force defenders to respect the shot. Once defenders start closing out harder, that is when driving lanes open, and that is when an athletic player like Hayes can take advantage of slower defenders trying to recover. If he continues improving defensively, becomes more disciplined with fouls, and adds even a small amount of shooting consistency, he could become one of those players who quietly becomes very important to a team system. Not always the player who scores the most points, but the type of player who makes everything easier for everyone else on the floor. Those players often do not get the most attention, but coaches and teammates know how valuable they really are because they impact spacing, defense, rebounding, and overall energy. And when you look at the direction of modern basketball, players who can defend multiple positions, run the floor, finish above the rim, and still step out to shoot are extremely valuable. That is why the idea of Hayes expanding his range is so interesting. It is not about turning him into a high-volume shooter, but about making the offense more flexible and unpredictable. If that development continues, it could add a completely new dimension to the way the team plays on the offensive end. Beyond the excitement of his recent shooting performance, what stands out about Jackson Hayes is his unique combination of athleticism and potential. It is rare to find a big man with the ability to run the floor as effectively as he does, while also having the skill set to expand outward toward the perimeter. Most centers are limited to traditional roles, either staying near the rim to protect it and finish lobs, or acting as stationary options in pick-and-roll situations. Hayes, however, brings a versatility that few players in the league possess. This opens up new opportunities for the Los Angeles Lakers, particularly in offensive schemes that rely on movement, spacing, and unpredictability. What makes him so intriguing is that the foundation for this type of player already exists. Hayes has the size, strength, and vertical explosiveness to dominate near the basket, and his speed allows him to transition quickly from defense to offense. He can create chaos in transition, force mismatches, and finish above defenders with authority. Now, imagine pairing that athleticism with even a moderate outside shot. Even a three-point percentage in the low 30s is enough to force defensive adjustments. Teams can no longer simply sag off him, daring him to take long shots, because he could punish them if left open. That threat changes how the entire opposing defense operates, giving his teammates more space and freedom to make plays. In pick-and-roll situations, this development becomes even more significant. Traditionally, Hayes has been a pure roller, a player who thrives when defenses allow him to attack the basket. But if he can pop out to the three-point line, suddenly the offense has multiple layers. The defending big is forced to make a difficult choice: stay in the paint to protect against a drive, or step out to contest a shot, potentially leaving a driving lane open. That sort of dual threat makes the Lakers' offense more dynamic, unpredictable, and difficult to scout, because Hayes can simultaneously pressure the rim and threaten from outside. For players like Luka, having a big man who can perform both roles allows for a wider variety of offensive sets and keeps defenses constantly guessing. Hayes' growth also impacts spacing for the team's other players. Floor spacing is one of the most underappreciated elements in modern basketball. When a defender respects a shooter on the perimeter, it naturally opens lanes for drives, cuts, and interior passes. If Hayes can consistently knock down a shot or even create the threat of doing so, defenders cannot fully commit to the paint, and that makes it easier for guards and forwards to operate effectively. Even modest development in his shooting ability magnifies the impact of the players around him, enhancing the team's overall offensive efficiency. It is also important to consider his defensive contributions alongside this potential offensive growth. Hayes has already shown improvements in discipline, lateral movement, and awareness, which allow him to stay effective as a rim protector and rebounder. These defensive traits make him harder to exploit even when he steps away from the basket. Being able to extend out to the three-point line does not compromise his defensive presence, because his foot speed and athleticism allow him to contest shots, switch on to smaller players, and still recover to protect the rim. The kind of two-way capability is increasingly valuable in a league that prioritizes versatility. One of the most intriguing aspects of Hayes' game is how it can affect the Lakers' lineup constructions. With a center who can stretch the floor, other players have more freedom to move, cut, and create off-ball opportunities. Guards can navigate pick-and-roll situations knowing that the opposing big must respect both the roll and the pop, which reduces predictable defensive patterns. This unpredictability in the offense forces opposing teams to overcompensate or make mistakes, creating more high-quality scoring chances. It also allows for the development of creative offensive schemes that can maximize the team's talent without relying solely on isolation plays. Jackson Hayes' trajectory is particularly interesting given his age. At 25, he is entering a phase where many players begin to consolidate their skills and expand their abilities. The physical tools are already in place, and he has experience at a high level of competition. If he continues to refine his shooting, decision-making, and consistency, Hayes could transform into a modern center archetype, one who can influence the game in multiple ways without being a traditional volume scorer. That versatility is what allows teams to evolve their strategies, adapt to different opponents, and exploit mismatches in creative ways. The concept of offensive spacing is one of the most critical advantages Hayes can offer. By threatening defenders with a shot from the perimeter, he creates uncertainty. A single defender cannot cover both the rim and the three-point line effectively without opening gaps elsewhere. That spacing not only benefits Hayes directly, but also enhances the efficiency of the guards and forwards operating in those lanes. The Lakers could run more complex pick and pop sequences, backdoor cuts, and drive and kick actions, all of which rely on defenders being forced to account for Hayes' dual threat. Even small improvements in his shooting could generate disproportionate benefits across the offense. Another consideration is Hayes' role in transition and fast break situations. His speed allows him to run the floor, catch lobs, and finish above defenders. Pairing that ability with the option to pull up for an open jumper makes him unpredictable on the move. Defenders can no longer simply sag off or anticipate the lob. This dual threat creates hesitation, and hesitation in basketball is often the difference between an easy basket and a contested shot. Hayes' development in this area would make him a multifaceted weapon, capable of changing the tempo of a game with his athleticism and expanded skill set. One of the most promising aspects of Hayes' game is how his development could synergize with other star players. For instance, in two-man games, if Hayes can pop out to the three-point line, the primary ball handler suddenly has more options. The opposing defender cannot predict whether Hayes will roll to the basket or step out to shoot. That unpredictability forces defenders to react instead of anticipate, often leading to mismatches or open lanes. Players who understand how to read these situations can exploit the defense for easy points, which further elevates the overall performance of the team. Before we continue, we ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Lakers updates. Moving on, the whispers that have been circling the league for weeks are growing louder, and now they're impossible to ignore. Kevin Durant appears to be heading to Hollywood, with multiple insiders suggesting that the superstar forward is set to become the newest addition to the Los Angeles Lakers. While no official announcement has been made, the momentum behind the rumor is undeniable, and it's already sending shockwaves through the basketball world. League sources describe the situation as all but done, hinting that the framework of a deal has been quietly assembled behind closed doors. Durant, known for his elite scoring ability and championship pedigree, would instantly reshape the Lakers' identity, potentially forming one of the most formidable lineups in recent memory. The idea of him wearing purple and gold feels surreal, yet increasingly plausible. Executives around the NBA are reportedly monitoring the situation closely, aware that a move of this magnitude could trigger a domino effect across the league. For the Lakers, the acquisition would signal an aggressive push toward immediate contention, reinforcing their win-now mentality. For Durant, it could represent another chapter in a career defined by bold decisions and high-stakes moves. Fans, meanwhile, are caught between excitement and disbelief. Social media has been flooded with speculation, mock lineups, and heated debates about how Durant would fit into the Lakers system. Some see it as a perfect basketball marriage, while others question the long-term implications. Until pen meets paper, the deal remains in the realm of rumor. But in a league where smoke often leads to fire, the possibility of Kevin Durant in Los Angeles is no longer just fantasy. It's a scenario that feels closer than ever to becoming reality. Stay informed exclusively about Los Angeles Lakers news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep receiving daily updates. Also, share your opinion on the news in the comments, as your contribution is crucial for the Lakers. Stay tuned for the next video.